Welcome to Project Quiver, a father-daughter journey across the globe to capture the artistry and spirit of the world's finest traditional bow carvers. I'm Todd, the father. Ella is my daughter. Together we're on a mission to create a stunning coffee table book that profiles more than a dozen master bowyers and their unparalleled skill. For each chapter, we travel to the bowyer's workshop, carve a bow under his guidance, photograph his woodcraft in detail, and share his story here on the Salish Wolf podcast. The book is called Quiver, The Art of Life Through Bowcraft. And this journey, our living story, is Project Quiver. Correy, welcome to the podcast. It's great to finally meet you.
Likewise, Todd. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So this is, as we just mentioned before I hit record, this is my 51st episode on Salish Wolf, where Project Quiver is being hosted, but this is the first of Project Quiver. And this is a journey and adventure that my daughter and I are going on to interview the best bowyers in the world and create a coffee table book about it. And you certainly qualify as one of the best in the world. And so I'm really excited to sit down with you, have you as my first guest, to be able to talk to you about the life of a bowyer and your experiences. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited. I appreciate that.
You seem to be a bit of a celebrity in the bowyer world. You have quite a following. You've been on a number of shows. How did you get into this as a profession?
So I'll try to keep it as concise as possible, but I'm a lifelong archer. So it's always, been around. My parents and uncles and everyone were all diehard bow hunters. So it wasn't something that was new to me. I had a bow and arrow in my hands all throughout my youth. And then I got away from it in high school, just interested in sports and cars and all that stuff. And then I joined the United States Marine Corps, and that took me away from archery completely for another 4 years. I was very steeped in the Marine Corps culture and really enjoyed my job. So that was pretty much my life, day and night, for 4 years. And after I got back from the Marine Corps, I just got a wild hunch one day to buy a traditional bow. And I was kind of looking for a therapeutic or artistic outlet of stress at that time. And so I bought a traditional bow and I was shooting it every day. And I was breaking tons of arrows in the first 6 months or so of my ownership of this new bow. And as everybody knows, arrows are extremely expensive. So after, several $100s worth of broken arrows, I decided I would learn how to make arrows first, which historically was a completely separate craft. Especially during militarized archery periods, you would have your professional fletchers and your professional bowyers, and you would go to the fletcher for your arrows and your bowyer for your bows. And of course, that's not universal. There are many hunter-gatherer tribes where everyone makes their own kit. But I started with arrows, and I focused on that for probably 6 months to a year. And arrows are as complicated or more complicated than bow making. And so after 6 months to a year of shooting these primitive handmade wooden arrows out of a store-bought fiberglass bow, I figured I'd better learn how to make a primitive bow. So I started with boards, and I built probably a dozen board bows before I built my first stave bow. And fortunately, the very first one from an Osage branch turned out fantastic, and I was hooked from there. So I dedicated myself to staves, and it was kind of a all-consuming hobby for a number of years. And my parents and friends and everyone were telling me to get on the internet. And at that time, I was not on social media of any kind. And I decided, after much pestering, that I would start an Instagram profile. And a couple of the, bigger names in the outdoor survival community, like Discovery History Channel type folks, found my page and they asked for a bow. And back then I was pretty much just giving them away. And so I made a few bows for some people with large followings, and it gained a lot of traction really quickly. And it got to a point after a pretty short amount of time on Instagram that I was getting custom orders. And And after a while of that, it got to basically me working a full-time job and then coming home and filling orders until late into the night. And I did that for 2 years before I started to get burnt out. And at that time, the bow making had almost replaced my full-time income. So I had to make a decision because I couldn't continue working a full-time job and working on bows all night long. My body was definitely deteriorating. So I took a leap of faith and I started Organic Archery in 2018. And at that time, I had probably built several hundred bows at least. I built at least 100, I would say, before I felt truly confident in asking money for them. And then, yeah, so by 2018, I'd built several hundred and I decided to start Organic Archery, and the rest is history. I focused on uh, I focused on custom orders for the first 2 years, and for me personally, that was not sustainable. It just kind of it was very impersonal. You know, the custom orders come in online, you fill them, you send them off, you never see or speak to the customers, and it really felt like factory work after a while. My books were super backed up, and I was in here from sunup to sundown 7 days a week. And I was single at that time, really focused on building my business. And so that started to burn me out. So we decided to start a school. And around that time, I met my wife, and she helped me, with some of the logistics of the school. And she's a professional bakery chef. Uh, she used to be a bakery chef. Now she's a stay-at-home mom. But so now she cooks for the classes, and that's our main focus. So that's kind
That's
of
awesome.
the whole evolution in a nutshell.
What
And
was the? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to tie it up in a nice little bow by saying we've been running classes for 4 full years. We're in our 5th year now, and we've had over 100 students that have come through.
Amazing. What was the time gap between when you bought that first bow and when you started actually making your bows, your first board bows?
I would say 6 months at most,
Okay.
probably. I had
And
bought the bow and shot it every day, and I realized pretty quickly that the arrows were going to get expensive, so I focused on those for
yeah,
6 months, maybe a year tops, and then it was straight into hand making the bows.
right. Not everyone, especially this being the first episode of Project Quiver, is going to understand the terminology of bow making, but a board bow, can you explain what that is?
A board bow is one that is crafted from dimensional lumber, typically bought from the local hardware store, and usually a hardwood like hickory or oak.
What was your first one?
I started with red oak, like many people. There used to be a forum back then or a website called Poor Folk Bows, and it was just about making bows from, these pyramid bows, which are very wide and they taper to a point, and they have a stiff handle, and that's the design that I started with.
And then you went on, you made a number of board bows. Were they all successful, or did you have some failures in that first handful?
They were all successful in that they shot, but
Yeah.
they were abominations. Some of them had so much hand shock that it felt like it was going to knock my teeth out. Some of them, the handle would pop off, multiple times, and I would have to re-glue it and bind it with cordage. So it was it was a journey. And looking back on the tiller of those early bows, they were pretty rough.
Yeah.
It's a wonder most of them survived.
And then you went on to stave. So a stave is what?
A stave is a bow that is taken from a quartered log, essentially. You
Right.
fell a tree and then split it out into at least quarters, or if it's a larger tree, eighths. And then that pipe, that 6 foot long pie shaped blank is your stave.
And your first was Osage Orange. Do you still have it?
I had it for probably 10 years and I sent it off in a Viking funeral one day just because my rack was getting completely, there were bows everywhere, and I just had to burn a bunch of them basically.
Oh man.
I gave as many of them away as I could to friends and family and, people online. And the early
Yeah.
one was not really, it was a great bow, but it was pretty rough looking. So
Yeah.
I just burned it in a ceremonial goodbye.
And after 100 or so, what was the first bow that you sold? Do you remember what kind it was?
The first bow I sold was a hackberry flat bow, and I sold it to Donnie Dust, who some people might recognize from the History Channel,
Okay.
or he's big on the social media channels as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
he bought the very first bow that I ever sold for money.
Nice. So a lot of work goes into bows, and anyone who's tried making them understands that. How much time do you spend on average making a bow?
I've never been the type of person that keeps track. Each bow is unique,
Yeah.
and you can have one that is tillered. So the tillering process is the actual art of bow making. That's where you teach wood to bend into an even arc. And uh, I forgot the question. Sorry, I was on a roll there.
No, no, the amount of time that goes into creating
Oh,
one
the
of these.
amount of time.
Yeah.
So they can fight you tooth and nail from beginning to end, and the tillering process can take 2 full days, or it can take 2 hours.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just establish a thickness taper into the limbs and you get an even bend right out the gate. And it's smooth sailing from there. And sometimes you struggle and you have to heat it. And so it could be 40 hours in a bow, or it could be 14 hours in a bow. It's really hard to tell. If I was building one for speed, which I don't typically do, I really like to take my time. But if I was building one for speed, I could probably build one in 4 hours, not including finish work. I mean, I could take a rough piece of wood and get it into a rough shooting bow that would have a long service life in 4 to 5 hours. But I would say my average is well over 20 hours, maybe.
Yeah. And what kind of tools are you using typically?
I like to stick to the hand tools. Uh, I do have a bandsaw and a belt sander, but those are mostly used for arrow making. Um, I just don't like to manage the dust. And also, power tools require a lot of maintenance, typically when you're running them hard. So I stick to my core tools would be a draw knife for major mass reduction, a spoke shave, which I don't use all that often, but that is a little bit more of a finer reduction tool. It's like a miniature draw knife, essentially, with a set depth, so it can only remove so much wood. And then I use a series of rasps. Uh, I would say my number one go-to rasp is the farrier's rasp, which is used for shaping horse hooves. That's a very aggressive tool, but I also use a Shinto rasp, which is a Japanese sawtooth rasp. And then I will usually use a card scraper and a couple of different needle files for shaping the nocks. And then, of course, sandpaper and all the stuff for finishing.
Uh-huh. Have you developed your own kind of unique style and your favorite type of bow that you like to make?
I thought that I had developed a favorite style, but it just seems to morph.
Yeah.
Uh, I'll spend a couple of years really enjoying making, for example, like a Holmegard replica. Uh, and I also like the English longbow a lot. I've been making a ton of those over the last couple of years. And I would say at this time, that one is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
Uh, just they're easy to construct, which I think is why they took took us, a deep. They grew deep roots in the military culture because you could maximize your tree yield basically because you get more bows out of the same tree. But the way that they are laid out with the round belly profile and everything, establishing the thickness taper is very easy, uh, and they just seem to come together really quickly.
Are you making the longbows out of yew wood?
I'm probably 1,500 miles from the nearest yew tree,
Yeah.
and everybody knows that has ever tried to buy a yew stave that they can be extremely expensive, especially one that is suitable for like a war bow, for example.
Right.
You're looking at 300 plus US dollars for a
Hmm.
premium stave. So I use the woods that I have available to me. And hackberry makes an excellent English longbow. So does mulberry, white ash, and hickory as well. Although some of the denser woods, you can't just like apply the design to any wood and have it succeed. You have to know how the wood's density and relates to its length and things like that, so that you can scale it down if the wood is very dense. So, for example, Osage, of course, makes many great bows, but it's so dense that if you apply it to an English longbow, it can't be 7 feet long. It has to be, below 6 feet long and much narrower than another species of wood. It all boils down to the mass, but there are many different bows that can make a good English longbow.
Yeah. I think you mentioned the therapeutic side of archery when you first got into it. How has that impacted your life? For me, it's been tremendous. And I think that's been probably the number one thing that keeps me coming back to it is that therapeutic, definitely meditative aspect of archery. How does that impact you?
I found it very beneficial in managing military-related post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
It's like a meditation for me in a way. It's sort of a daily practice. My wife talks about this all the time. She's a yoga teacher, and she talks about the practice, the actual discipline of doing it every single day, even on the days that you don't want to, and finding that place of peace and connectedness to the actual art, or in this case, I consider archery to be a bit of a martial art, which it was considered, for thousands of years to be a military or martial art.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for me, it's a daily meditation. It's a practice to go out there and shoot, even on the days that I don't want to, or even on the days that I'm shooting poorly, just to clear my head. It's kind of a calm mental space, because the
Yeah.
more clutter you have, the worse you shoot, and the more you can clear your mind, the better you shoot.
I want to hear more about the post-traumatic stress and how the archery is beneficial to it. Because I I do something called archery therapy, which is not very well known, but I use archery to help people heal. I'm also an acupuncturist, and I got into archery through my practice of Qigong, which is a healing art. And so I combine the healing arts with the martial arts, and I find it tremendously helpful for people. But I would love to hear your experience with it in that healing aspect.
I'm not entirely sure I could put it into words. I think more than anything, it's a mind clearing exercise. And for, a lot of combat vets, the mind can be a bit of a trap, I suppose. You can get into these spirals of thought that take you down old memories, or negative feedback loops, or you know um, aggression or irritation, or any number of ways that can manifest. For some people it's depression, for some people it's aggression. But yeah, I just consider archery my daily mind clearing exercise. And if I miss it for too long, I can feel myself building up, tension in my body.
Uh,
So I'm not really sure what the pathways or the mechanics are to the healing process, but for me, it's just a mind clearing exercise, which is like a meditation. Which, of course, a lot of people know meditation is great for calming yourself and just general overall healing.
yeah. And curious of your shooting style. Do you shoot ambidextrously, or do you just shoot one-sided?
I'm right-handed only,
Okay.
and Mediterranean draw as well.
Okay. Wait, can you explain what that is? The Mediterranean draw.
The Mediterranean draw is the one that is most, depicted in movies, and it's the one that you see everybody use nowadays. The arrow's placed on the left side of the bow, and it's drawn with it. I'm a right-handed archer, so bow goes in my left hand, string is drawn with my right, and I'm a split finger shooter as well, which means one finger above the nock and two fingers below. But it's just the style that you see in all the movies, and basically everyone uses it, with some exception.
Right. And then that's different from, is it called the Asian style? I don't know the right name for, but I know
Um,
different styles for sure in Asia where they're shooting off the thumb side and pinching the string more with the knuckle and the thumb rather than in between the fingers.
Yeah, I just call those Eastern draw styles.
Okay.
I don't know the formal name for them either, but
Yeah.
the Eastern style is to place the arrow on the right side of the bow if you're a right-handed archer, and to draw the string with the thumb.
Yeah.
And typically, a Mediterranean archer uses some sort of finger protection, typically like a tab or a glove. An Eastern style archer uses a thumb ring.
Right. So I ask about shooting on both sides because someone is shooting as much as you do and you look like you're quite fit. How do you offset that imbalance? How do you adjust to that to accommodate it? Or do you?
I probably should, but I don't. And the English, the English skeletons that were uncovered, for example, with the Mary Rose ship, had deformed skeletons where the
Yeah.
bone density in their left arm from holding these heavy bows was 30% denser than their right side. And I'm noticing some of that in my physique. My left arm is quite noticeably larger than my right,
Really?
and they have totally different muscle structure.
Uh-huh.
Like my left arm, for example, has like really full muscle bellies, and then my right arm is long and lean. And it's slight, but it is noticeable to me. And I have some noticeable differences in the erectors in my spine as well. The one on my left side is much more developed than the one on my right.
Right.
Um, and so I probably should train to fix that balance, but my training is just old school military stuff. I
Yeah.
still stick to the running, uh, lifting occasionally, lots of pull-ups, push-ups, body weight squats, body weight lunges, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So I try to keep myself as well-rounded as I can in my fitness routine, but I don't do anything to offset the imbalances that are being created by archery.
And have you ever tried shooting from the other side?
Yeah, actually, when people come to our classes, we finish out the class with a long shooting session on the last day and cover the fundamentals of archery. And then we do a game that I made up called archery. It's like reverse horse, basically. So you shoot for the letters, you want to get the letters. But anyway, everyone's taking turns picking these wild shots, and you can pick moving shots or shots from the trees or offhanded shots. So a lot of folks pick offhanded shots, and so I get a little bit of practice on my offhand that way.
How's that feel? Totally foreign?
If I can hit what I'm looking at because I know what the sight picture is supposed to
Yeah.
look like, but the draw feels totally off.
Yeah.
It's weird for me to reach anchor point with the off arm.
Yeah. And you mentioned the Mary Rose and these British archers. Like in some cases, they were pulling bows that were over 200 pounds, and this was their job. So they were training at this all the time, and they were quite imbalanced. So when I first got into archery, and I had a calling to it, I just felt it like I needed to find a traditional bow, and I ended up one of my first teacher, Jamie McDonald, who's going to be part of the book. I ended up finding him. He lived a few hours north of where I was living at the time, and I bought an English longbow from him, one made out of Pacific yew. And my very first shots, I thought, you know what, I want to be able to do this both sides. I don't want to be imbalanced. And so I started shooting on my offside, and I shot probably 2 or 3 rounds. The first time I'd ever shot a bow. And so then that was like, okay, that feels all right. And then I moved to what should have been my good side. And ever since, I've just switched back and forth. Anytime I go out to shoot, I'll do like 100 arrows on either side or whatever it is. I always balance it out. And what I've noticed is we're all one eye dominant. For me, I'm right eye dominant. So on what would be my good side, what I'm looking at is typically what I hit. But when I shoot on the offside, with my left eye being weaker, I have quite a bit of ground to make up. From what I'm looking at to where the arrow goes is quite different. But what I've noticed over the years is that distance has really decreased. And so my aim is now much truer with my left eye than it used to be. So I don't know what it's doing with the brain and the vision, but I think it's helping. And certainly I find that it's helping to keep the body balanced as opposed to creating an imbalance with it. So I've always loved it. I've enjoyed the challenge of doing it. I recommend it. We'll do it when I come.
Nice. Yeah, it's probably something that I should incorporate, and it sounds helpful.
It's more meditative, I find, even to switch sides. It's more it's more complete anyway, as far as doing both sides. But when I go on what would be my offside, there's just that a little bit more of like attention and focus that's required. And now probably not, because I've been doing it for so long, but I think it really helped with that kind of complete holistic meditative package of it.
Yeah, it sounds like it'd be quite challenging for your brain to adjust. And if you were practicing like that regularly, that
Yeah.
might be something I might have to go out later today and try a few offhand shots.
Yeah. When I teach lessons here in my home in Costa Rica, I always offer that to people, and a lot of people will want to shoot both sides, and it's always a good challenge. And I think sooner they start, the better off if they're gonna get into archery.
Yeah, many of the Middle Eastern archer, like warrior cultures, they were required to shoot from both sides of the bow.
Really?
Part of their mandatory training.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Lars Anderson covers some of that stuff in a few of his historically based videos.
Yeah.
For like the Saracen archery and stuff.
You mentioned that your first bow was sold to someone from the History Channel, and the History Channel reached out to you early on. What's your relationship with them now? I know you've actually done some programming with them. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that we have a long-standing relationship or anything. We did the Alone show, and you do your time, and that's pretty much it. There's a lot of contact leading up to the show.
Tell me about the Alone show.
For anyone that doesn't know, the Alone show is a survival show that's on the History Channel, and it's where 10 contestants are dropped into the most remote and dangerous locations on Earth with 10 survival items, and it's a last man standing type of deal, basically, and it's all self-filmed. So obviously, with the title being Alone, one of the major factors is the mental isolation of being alone in the wilderness for an extended period of time, and it's all self-filmed. And yeah, you try to see how long you can last.
Where were you?
I was in the Northwest Territories of Canada, in the Great Slave Lake area, which is near the Arctic Circle.
How long were you out there?
I was out there for 12 days because I sustained a left knee injury that took me out. I tore my MCL and meniscus on the third or fourth day, and I rode it out for about 9 more days before the condition was unsafe. I had a large pocket of fluid in the back of my knee, and it had totally disabled my ability to move, and I had no lateral stability in my knee, which I later found out was from a torn MCL. And there was so much fluid in the back of my knee that I was worried that if that sac ruptured, it would cause septic arthritis. And we were like 45 minutes QRF, quick relief, to get a helicopter on site, and then another several hours by bush plane to the nearest hospital. There are, of course, trained medical personnel on staff, but with something like sepsis,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not willing to risk my life for a television show.
Yeah.
And also, I love my life back home. We're very active. We love camping and hiking and working out and running. And so when I'm looking at severe lifelong knee damage, it's just wasn't worth it to me. So
how long was the winter out there for?
I was on the 100-day challenge, which was a special season 7, where they doubled the prize money to $1 million for anyone that could last 100 days. And Roland Welker made it all 100 days.
Wow. So you said you were given survival items. Were you given a bow, or did you have to craft a bow?
Or did you have to choose the bow?
Okay.
You choose your 10 survival items from a carefully curated 20 to 30 items that the show allows.
Yeah.
And the bow, if you choose to take a bow, it comes as an archery kit, basically. So you get a bow, 9 arrows with points of your choosing, a quiver, and a shooting glove to protect your hand. And so that is your archery kit, and that counts as one item.
Can I assume you chose an archery kit?
Absolutely.
What kind of bow was it? Anything special about it?
Not really. It was, I mean, I made the bow for the show. It was a long hackberry flat bow.
Oh, you made it. Okay.
Yeah. You can choose to bring a self-made bow or a fiberglass laminate, but it has to be traditional. They don't allow compounds on the show.
So other than the injury, well, including the injury, it was part of your experience. What was it like for you?
It was eye-opening in a lot of different ways. It was very humbling because, of course, everyone goes out there with the mentality that they're gonna, show Northern Canada what's up, and they're gonna
Uh-huh.
come out the champ, and it's all gonna go great. And it's very humbling when you get out there and see just how difficult it is, how challenging the conditions of the environment are, and then you add injury on top of that. I mean, it's incredibly challenging just to start with, to survive for 100 days in the wild with no supplies other than tools to acquire food, and then you can double the difficulty by the self-filming aspect, because not only do I have to walk down and get water to bring up to camp to boil, I got to walk down, set up my camera, walk back a little ways, and then
Oh,
pretend I'm
shit.
walking down to, so everything is twice over because you have to set up the cameras and capture the shots. And
Wow.
of course, hunting is made many times more difficult by cameras.
Oh, man.
And so you've got, say, double the difficulty, maybe more, by having to self-film the show, and then add injury onto that, and it's just exponential.
And I'm assuming that the filming part must be required. Like, you can't just be like, fuck it, I'm not going to film this. I'm just going to go hunt.
Oh no, yeah, no.
No,
There's
you
a
got to.
contractual requirement to film at least, the bare minimum is 40 hours a week of
Yeah.
of footage. So you're filming all day, every day. If the
Wow.
cameras aren't on, you don't get the shots. So you got a camera on you. You got GoPros. You got a handheld. You got a big, production camera that sits on a tripod, and you've got some kind of camera with you day and night.
Wow. So that must be an incredible drain on you trying to be out there surviving and then dealing with all of that stuff.
Yeah, they try to shift your mentality around the cameras to treat it like a personal diary, or like a Wilson, for example. But
Wilson.
they're I don't like Wilson very much. It turns out just lugging the cameras around is a giant pain, but it was an awesome experience for the short amount of time. Obviously, I wish I could have lasted a lot longer. I don't feel like I was able to accomplish what I set out to with the
Yeah.
journey, but I took a lot home with it, and it was very humbling, which I suppose was the lesson that I was supposed to receive from that.
Right. And then you were involved in some other media with archery, weren't you? You did a marksman show, or
Yeah.
you
So
tell?
alone came and went, and of course that they've got, as soon as your season's over, they're prepping for the next season. So it's not like you have a long-standing relationship with the History Channel just because you've been on that show.
Right.
And so, life goes on. A couple of years passed, and History Channel reached back out. They were running a pilot for a new show called The Ultimate Marksman, where they were going to use, well, for our season, it was tools from the Wild West, like first contact, uh, like first Western contact type situation. So primitive bows, flintlock rifles. I believe there was an episode on center fire pistols, like revolvers, and then thrown weapons, throwing tomahawks and throwing knives and things of that nature. And so I was an archery episode. There were two
Okay.
archery episodes. I think they ended up breaking it up, and I'm in season 2, or the second running.
Okay.
So yeah, our episode was purely archery. There were very short bows, and originally we were going to bring our own bows, but they figured there would be some conflict there. If like, I mean, just in my case, like if a professional bowyer had a bow that was crafted, and someone had a bow that they've only made 10 bows,
Right.
and there would be an obvious difference in the performance of those bows, so they didn't want that to be a factor, so they supplied us with the bows in the end. But yeah, we shot unique challenges set up to replicate situations in the Wild West. So it was for a $10,000 grand prize, and there were 3 challenges total. Let's see, the first one was a speed shooting challenge. It required speed and accuracy. So we were shooting at various sized discs, anywhere from about the size of I would say a tennis ball to a basketball. That was about the varying sizes of the targets. And so we were standing about, I would say 15 yards away, definitely not more than 20, they were unknown distances. We didn't know the distance, but I would estimate it at about 15 yards. And the host would call out a random number, and it was a race to see who could put it through that bullseye, however big it was, first. So that was challenge number one. Challenge number two was a river hunting simulation where you're using the water as cover and you're moving quickly along the shoreline and you're shooting at, some of them were stationary and unknown distances, and some of them had a rotating wheel with a small hole. So it was an accuracy and a timing shot there. So there were 4 targets in that challenge. And the distances were much further in that one. I would estimate those distances to be 20 to 25 yards. And the targets were quite small, about the size of a dinner plate. And then the third challenge was to simulate a buffalo running down a hill and you trying to catch it before it disappeared, essentially. So it was 3 arrows at a target that was rolling down the hill, and it had 2 separate bullseyes painted on it that were, these were larger targets, but you had 3 arrows, and it was kind of like dealer's choice. You had to put one in the large target in the center, so one of the targets was stationary because it was painted on the center of this giant rolling wheel, and the other one was painted on the outside of the wheel, so it moved.
Right.
So there was a timing challenge involved with the smaller target. But you had to put 1 arrow in each of those, and then it was dealer's choice as to where you put the 3rd arrow. And if you put the 3rd arrow in the moving target, it was double the points. So
how'd it work out for you?
I won that show.
Nice.
Yeah. Nice redemption after the whole alone thing,
How's your knee since the alone thing? Did it heal up?
Yeah, it was a really long recovery because I chose not to do surgery. They weren't recommending surgery. It wasn't a total MCL tear. It was still hanging on. And they said if I just took it easy and did a lot of physical therapy, that it would eventually heal.
Yeah.
And a long time ago in another life, I did a short stint as an exercise therapist and personal trainer. So I knew what I needed to do to heal it. And it took at least 2 years, I would say, before it was fully right again, where I could go back to, 100% training. But yeah, it's been a long time now. I think I did alone in like 2019.
Okay.
It's been, 6 years.
Yeah. So you mentioned you started up a school. How's that experience been for you?
The bowmaking school has been the best decision we've ever made.
Nice.
It really reignited my passion for the craft. Like I said, in the early years when I was just in here building bows by myself from sun up to sundown for years, that was kind of getting old, I guess. It was taking the joy out of it. And after we started bringing people in here and getting to meet all these awesome people from all different walks of life and all over the U.S. and even some people from other countries, that's been fantastic. We invite them into our home. We build bows together for 3 or 4 days, depending on which class you choose, because we have a beginner and an advanced course. And we share meals. My wife cooks these amazing lunches that are she goes all out with those. And so we share great meals and we build bows for several days. And at night we sit around the fire and everyone tells stories, and it's just good fun. And
awesome.
It's been so enriching, and I look forward to it every month. We run about 1 a month, sometimes 1 every 2 months.
Yeah.
It just depends on how the year's scheduling works out, but it averages out to about 8 classes a year, and I look forward to every single one.
My first experience bow making, I bought my first bow from Jamie McDonald in British Columbia, and then I was doing men's retreats at the time, and so I asked him if I could bring a group of men, and we would do bow carving in addition to stuff that we were doing on a men's retreat. And so that was the first time I ever carved a bow. I carved an English longbow with him, and I did a few rounds of that with him before COVID happened. But it was just, what an amazing experience for the men who had some of them never worked with wood before. Some of them never worked with their hands before. And we were doing a lot of deep personal transformation during the retreat. And then to combine that with this like kind of metaphorical peeling back of the layers of the wood. Like so many men were having such deep breakthroughs in carving the bows because it was so relevant to the experiences we were going through. We would carve bows for 8 hours a day, and then at nighttime we'd go and do a bunch of men's work stuff, and just the symmetry between those was amazing. And I didn't fully appreciate how incredible that was going to be until we actually got there and started carving these bows and seeing how just carving the bow itself is therapeutic. And I don't think anyone who hasn't done that or hasn't worked with their hands or hasn't shaped a piece of wood into something, I don't think they can understand that. But it's so easy. As you said, you would spend sunlight to sundown, carving bows. It's so easy to get immersed in it because it's just like this purely meditative pursuit and peeling back the layers of this wood. And really, I've only probably carved 30 or 40 bows, and definitely not all successful. But it's so exciting, I find, to like take a stave and not really know what weight's inside of it. I know that there is bow potential there, but to actually peel back those layers and actually have this thing take shape that's not just a beautiful piece of wood, because it is, but something that's fully functional and is basically able to be tested to its near breaking point and then perform time and time and time again. It's incredible. I mean, that's my romantic outlook on bow carving, but I absolutely love it. And it brings me great joy, like when people like you who have so much passion for it are then able to share that with other people. That's awesome. And I see that every day just with people I'm giving lessons to. But I know I haven't taught anyone bow carving. So I know that's a whole nother layer of deep appreciation for it.
Yeah, I love that outlook. We often joke that we're doing a lot more than making bows here. People come and they have this experience that pushes them mentally. I would say half the people that attend our classes have no prior archery or woodworking experience.
Yeah.
So it's very fulfilling to them to achieve something that is incredibly difficult over the course of several grueling days. It's definitely an exercise in endurance, and the reward is so great because they get to leave with this handcrafted bow that we've never had one that is left here that didn't perform excellently and have a lot of the signs of like a bow that's going to treat them well for many years. But it's long days of standing on the concrete, pulling hand tools through hardwoods, which, as anyone who's done it knows, is no easy task. And if you've never done anything like that before, it can definitely leave you exhausted at the end of the day. So we have a couple of really exhausting days that push people's mental and physical limits. And on the third day, we've got it, or third or fourth day, of course, depending on which class you take, we've got it crafted so that that's just this let off the steam and enjoy the beauty of the finished product day, where they get to craft bowstrings and then spend the whole day shooting these bows that they have essentially suffered, blisters, oftentimes blood, plenty of sweat. And yeah, it's so rewarding to see people light up when they watch that first arrow leave these bows, with a nice flat trajectory and smacking the target. It's very fulfilling for me as an instructor.
Yeah. I mean, that is how Project Quiver came about, and I just wanted to carve bows under a number of different teachers. I've had two teachers who I mentioned, Jamie McDonald and Pete Woodland, who are both going to be featured in the book. But I wanted to expand. I wanted to carve under a number of different people. And so that's how this whole idea came about. I was like, well, it'll be a great journey. I'll just travel the world carving bows under the best in the world. And then that gradually morphed into a book idea. And my daughter loves photography and she homeschools. And we're like, well, let's use this as part of your homeschooling, and let's go around the world and carve bows and record that. And so bow carving is just like, I don't think I'll ever get tired of it. I think I love carving bows potentially more than I love archery itself. And I love archery a whole lot, but the meditative aspect of carving bows just takes me to another place. I think you said that you got into archery from your family, right?
Yeah, I come from a long line of outdoorsmen and bow hunters.
Yeah. For some of the people, and it's maybe a hard question to answer, but for some of the people that come to your class who have never even done archery, what are some of the reasons why they show up to make a bow when they haven't even done archery before? Any standouts?
I think archery, especially primitive or traditional archery, is, you know, it's having a huge comeback in pop culture.
Yeah.
So you're seeing it in lots of movies. It's just popping up everywhere,
Yeah.
from the Predator movies to the medieval movies to the Hunger Games, like you name it. It's in hero show like Marvel movies and stuff, and on and on and on. So pop culture has really taken on to the traditional bow. It's not often that you see a compound bow in a movie. Uh, and so I think that might have something to do with it.
It does.
Uh, Most people talk, you know, we have plenty of archers that are lifelong archers or that have been doing it for many years, and they're more just regressing their equipment. Like they picked up a compound right away, decided, you know, for whatever reason, this isn't for me, whether it's all the technology involved or the fact that you can't repair them yourselves in any way. You know, if you're shooting a compound, you're basically relying on somebody with a bow press even to change your bow strings. And there's a lot of things that can go wrong with them that you don't really have the ability to fix. And they become obsolete so quickly that the guarantee that you're even going to be able to get parts for them in 5 or 10 years is hit or miss. So maybe they shoot a compound for a short period of time, decide for whatever reason, whether they're just not drawn to the technology or they feel like it's not quite challenging enough, they move to a traditional bow, oftentimes like a fiberglass recurve. And then for one reason or another, they decide that the obvious next step for them is to go to primitive archery and make their own equipment. And once you have made your own bow and arrows, it it just, to me, it opens up the possibilities in archery, because from this point forward you can essentially for free or for a small investment in tools, you outfit yourself with bows and arrows that you can not only build but repair, or replace, you know, in any instance that they become damaged. So it's kind of a self-sufficiency thing, I suppose, which is also, you know, gaining a lot of traction right now.
Yeah.
I think COVID-19 probably had a lot to do with that. Uh, People getting interested in homesteading and gardening and raising chickens, and I mean, hunting is a big facet of self-reliance. So a
Yeah.
bit
Do
of a
you hunt?
resurgence in self-reliance culture, I think, has a lot to
Yeah.
do with it as well.
Do you hunt?
I do. I'm a diehard
Yeah.
whitetail hunter.
Do you use a bow?
I have hunted exclusively with handmade primitive archery equipment for at least 13 years. Yeah.
How's that experience? I've never hunted. It's something that I've been like, I grew up in a family where hunting was not something that was done. And now that I'm into archery, I get asked that a lot. I'm like, I think I could. I'm not sure if I could. I think I could. But how is it like you've been a hunter your whole life, but how does it compare to hunting with your own handmade primitive tools?
I mean, in my opinion, as far as archery is concerned, it's just the ultimate challenge.
Yeah.
I've always been drawn to the most challenging thing that I can do. For example, you can join any branch of the military, but I was determined to join the Marine Corps, which has a reputation for being extremely difficult. And with primitive archery, uh, it just seemed like the biggest challenge to me, like the most rewarding path to choose. Uh, I'm I don't have anything negative to say about anyone who hunts with any equipment. I'm just happy that people are out there hunting. And modern equipment has a big place, and it's an important place as well, because not everyone has the ability to train every single day or to, you know, shoot for months leading up to the season. So where modern archery comes into play is you can pick up, say, a compound bow and train with it a few days on and off for a couple of weeks and get all the sights and everything dialed in, and you can still be an effective hunter and provide clean, fresh meat for your family. So I do believe that all of that has a place, and I would say that that's probably the best route for the masses, especially if they don't have the time. But for me, it was just regressing my progression, I suppose, uh, until I reached the ultimate challenge, which was a stick bow with a string and no aids of any kind. Uh, and then the handmade arrows, of course, which it shifts the hunting from the equipment, because the hunting industry has become sort of, in my opinion, bastardized by innovation.
Yeah.
Compound bows, camouflage, sights, arrows, you name it, they're obsolete the very next year.
Yeah.
It's almost like the iPhone. You've got the iPhone 15, and then 6 months later, the iPhone 16 comes out, and everything about your iPhone 15 is obsolete, even though it worked fine. A compound bow will come out that's 1 foot per second faster, and you're supposed to spend $3,000 on the upgrade. So I think people are kind of sick of the innovation and the sort of the technology overtaking of everything, including hunting. So you're seeing a big resurgence in traditional archery, which is moving the focus away from the equipment and the gear to the woodsmanship aspect, to the actual challenge of getting into the woods and putting in time day after day unsuccessfully to learn animal behavior and to study their patterns and to learn how to track and to read sign and to learn how to read wind, and the list goes on and on. Learn about cover and concealment and all the things that go into a successful hunt on a difficult animal or a highly alert animal like a whitetail deer. So there's a lot of time spent without bringing anything home.
Yeah.
Some years I kill 3 or 4 deer. Some years I kill 1, and that's not for lack of trying either. So it's humbling, and it forces you to really pay attention to the animals. I would say that I'm a devout student of the whitetail deer.
Yeah.
And people often have difficulty understanding hunters because we kill these animals, but what they miss is that I love them dearly, and I respect them, and I think about them all day long. They become an all-consuming obsession leading up to deer season. And yeah, I really respect them, and it's sort of a wit versus wit challenge, and a new connection to my food, because I know that animal. Oftentimes I've been following it for weeks or sometimes even years. I see the same animals over and over. So you build a relationship with these animals, and yeah, it's just people have no problem eating beef and pigs and chickens so long as it doesn't look like a cow, a pig, or a chicken. So it's the same thing. It's just the circle of life. You don't get to avoid it unless you want to be a committed vegan.
Yeah.
And even then, we don't even have to get into the logistics of that. It's obvious that commercial farming kills.
Well, even I have an organic farm in British Columbia, and the amount of critters that have to die to grow anything, it's phenomenal. Like, you cannot avoid it, and I don't think people understand that. You take the tractor out to mow down the weeds, well, you're killing a bunch of little ground critters, killing birds' nests. It's inevitable. It's in everything. And I think what you said about the connection to the food, so important, because people will go into the grocery store, zero relationship to their food and where it came from. They'll buy some meat packaged in plastic, and that's okay to them. But for you, like you said, it's such a deeper thing than that. And you're getting, and quite frankly, the meat you're getting is significantly healthier too. But you have that experience, you have that relationship, and I think it's so much more important. And I didn't learn that, although I'm not a hunter. I've farmed enough with animals that I had to process, and I had to slaughter and process to recognize that it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to do, especially the first few times. Like, wow, I have to take this life, or I'm choosing to. And to honor that, I want to use everything that's here, and not just go to the grocery store and buy something packaged in plastic that lived a horrible life.
Yeah, I really believe that no matter which path you choose, unless you're gonna, be one of the people that pretend to survive on water and air or whatever, you're not gonna be able to remove yourself from the cycle of life. You only get to choose how you're going to participate in it.
Yeah.
So you're gonna let somebody else do the dirty work to give you the beautifully packaged, cellophane wrapped, faceless piece of meat, or are you going to build a relationship with that animal, a loving relationship where you know what it eats, you know what it
Mhm.
drinks, uh, you follow it and you care about it and you tend the land to make their life better, to make it more likely that they're going to reproduce and that they're going to live a healthy life and that they're going to make it through the winter. You're tending your land to make sure that the deer are well taken care of. And we don't do food plots or anything, but on the small pieces of family land that we have that are multi-generational, like we're definitely taking care of it and tending to it to make sure that the deer have what they need. Uh, and yeah, it's just it's a totally different way of life.
It
I
is.
don't think it's
What's the experience for you, that moment of actually taking the animal's life? An animal that you, like you said, you intimately know it and its patterns.
complete and utter relief if I make a good shot. Yeah.
Mm.
If I put an arrow right through both lungs or right into the heart, it's just a complete tidal wave of relief.
Mm.
And I thank the Lord for giving me the ability to put the arrow exactly where I wanted it. People think that it's gruesome somehow. A lot of times it's misconstrued, but I've had deer that had no idea that they were hit.
Yeah.
I don't even think, I think once the adrenaline kicks in, as far as they're concerned, it might be a bee sting. Maybe they got pricked by a stick or something, but I don't think it's incredibly painful for them. I've never seen a deer that was hit well exhibit any sort of like extreme agony.
Yeah.
I've even had deer that have been hit with an arrow in a perfectly placed shot and they had no idea what was going on. And they
Mhm.
just went back to eating the grass right there in the spot that they were hit and then they fall over.
Really?
So I think it's very fast. People don't realize that when it's well
Mhm.
placed. I mean, a matter of seconds.
Yep.
20 to 40 yards on a perfect shot and they're falling over, especially if they're on a dead run. But yeah, it's complete and utter relief for me the moment that I make a good shot. And then, of course, I wait. I want to make sure that the animal goes down quickly and humanely. And then I'll have my moment of reverence with that animal while I'm standing over it. Just thank it.
Mm.
You know, thank you, deer. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, land is kind of my prayer. I just say that and I spend a moment of silence with the animal, just checking it out, looking it over, just appreciating it.
So
And
important.
then the hard work starts. Then
You do the processing?
we do all of our own processing. Yeah.
And do you use any of the skin or anything in the bow making process?
We use pretty much everything. The hides I turn into rawhide for backing bows. I've got a big hide stretcher, so they get fleshed and then dehaired, and then I stretch and dry them, and those hides become bow backing. The sinew from the Achilles tendons in the legs is used for either sinew-backed Native American bows or for arrow making. And the bones my wife turns into broth. We're big fans of broths. We make all kinds of broths. So she makes bone broth out of those. And then we package every morsel of meat that we can save.
How do you make the arrows from sinew?
The sinew is just used as a binder
Okay.
to attach the feathers and to reinforce the nocks. Because self-made nocks on a wooden arrow will split from the pressure of the bowstring unless they're reinforced directly below the nock. So there's a small bit of space directly below the nock that's reinforced, and then usually the front of the feather is reinforced as well to create a smooth transition for shooting off the knuckles. Because if you don't have a shelf of any kind on your bow, which I don't carve shelves into any bow that I make.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't think I've ever carved a shelf.
I love that. That was one of our biggest criteria when we were choosing who to reach out to for this book project. When we would find their work, it would be like, there's a shelf. I don't know. Let's come back to that one.
Yeah.
But anyone who didn't have a shelf, it was like, there we go. Let's see where this one goes. So I really appreciate that. I don't know what it is too. I think for me, because I shoot ambidextrously, I don't want a shelf. I couldn't have a shelf on a bow that I shoot both ways, but it's beyond that too. There's something about it that it doesn't feel right to me.
Yeah, I like to be connected to the arrow. I like to feel where it's at,
Okay.
on my hand, and I like to be able to feel the point and everything so that I know where I'm at in my draw cycle. And it just makes me feel more connected to the equipment to be able to feel the bow and the arrow. I don't know. I don't really have any poetic reason. I just feel like I shoot better that way, and I like the way they look. I think it. I think that the carved in shelf, and this is of course just personal opinion and personal aesthetic preference, but I think that a lot of times the carved in shelves are a little too reminiscent of the modern fiberglass riser.
Right.
I think a lot of people make these primitive bows or self bows from a single piece of wood, and then they carve this big fiberglass riser into it.
Yeah.
And I just like the traditional way, which I mean, across all cultures and most of humanity was no shelf. Doesn't matter where at in the world or what style of bow was being used, it was almost always off the knuckles.
Yeah. I appreciate that. So what's next for you? Other than I'm coming to see you soon, but that's probably not that exciting. But what's big and upcoming?
Yeah, we'll be seeing you in what, a month? A little over a month.
Sometime in June, yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
You are number 2 on the world tour. So far we have 14 bowyers, and
Awesome.
you're number 2 on the list. We're gonna hopefully get up to 18. There's a few we're trying to get who aren't returning our calls, but we're gonna keep trying.
Who's stop number one?
Waylon Olive in North Carolina. So
Nice. Waylon will set the standard high.
yeah, and then after you, we go to Salt Lake City for Chuck Leffler. I don't know how to pronounce his last name properly, but
Awesome. I know Chuck's work. He's
yeah.
a master of historical reproductions.
Yeah. What we're trying to do is each bow that I carve, we want each of them to be unique. I don't want to just carve 14 or 18 English longbows. So we're trying to select people who are not only the best, but also have their own kind of niche and their own special craftsmanship. So it seems to be working out nicely that way.
Awesome. What's next for us? I would say one big thing is we've started remote classes. I don't know what that looks like exactly, but we've ran several. And so that's just me going out to other people's facilities that have the space to
Got it.
handle multiple people. And we run sort of like impromptu, like shoot from the hip classes out there, because here we have all the specialized equipment. I've got stations set up for the students so that they have everything that they need and they don't have to fuss with the work piece a lot.
Yeah.
But when we're doing it remote, we never know where we're going to be at or what the equipment's going to look like. So a lot of times we're working on our laps or using hatchets to rough out and stuff like that. So that's something that we're exploring. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. I've done a couple already and they've been great, fortunately. So we'll keep running those and see how that turns out. But otherwise, we're just running our normal course schedule this year. I think we've got at least 4 more classes left this year, maybe more. Yep. I'd have to check my schedule, but so we'll keep doing that. And yeah, I'll keep churning and burning the wood shop. I'd take occasional custom orders. I just don't let my books run away anymore.
Yeah.
It's more like people who are genuinely interested can contact me and I will take a custom order. And I do all types of bows, from the English longbow to the short Native American horsebow and everything in between. So if it's something that if someone's really interested in, it's something that sounds like a fun build to me, I still take customs. So a lot of times I'm in the bow shop working when we're not running classes. And aside from that, I'm focused on my family. I've got a wife that stays at home, and we've got a son who's 1.5. And
Congrats.
Thank you. He's great. So I'm really spending a lot of time with my son right now and focusing on his early development. And yeah, we've got a small homestead here with chickens and a garden, and gardening season is in full swing right now. So we're just trying to find balance.
At what age does your son get his first bow?
He has a little plastic one right now that one of our family members gifted him. It's the one with the little suction cup arrows, which happens to be the very first bow that I ever got when I was 3. They're still around, the same exact one. And so one of our relatives gifted that to him recently, and He's just now starting to understand the mechanics to where he can get arrows to fly, but I think his first real bow will be more like 3, probably. They
And
just
what
don't quite understand how to make it work before then.
Yeah. In one of my early men's retreats, I wanted to carve a bow for my son, who at the time was probably 5, maybe. And so I was at Jamie McDonald's place in British Columbia, and he had a little stave of yew wood. So I started carving it, and then I had all the men who were at the retreat help out. So we each took turns carving a little bit of my son's bow and made this beautiful little English longbow for him that I still have. And I was trying to think of a name that was appropriate for it. And I told Jamie I wanted it to be something about like people working together. And it turned out that where he lives in Powell River, British Columbia, the native name for this area is called Kathet, which literally means people working together. So it's like,
That's crazy.
that's perfect. So he got his first bow named Kathet, and he loved it. He shot that thing for a number of years, and I still have it hanging. I still use it in my teaching if I have a really, really tiny person come in who wants to shoot.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell the listeners where they can find out more about you, check out your bows, maybe buy a bow, do some classes.
You can find everything you need about the classes and all my contact information to reach out for a custom order on organicarchery.com. And my full course schedule for all of both our beginner, advanced, and remote classes will always be live on there that it shows all the available spots and everything. And then my emails and stuff are listed on there. And then we're also on Instagram at organic_archer. And I'm also on YouTube at Organic Archery. And YouTube's something I've really been putting a lot of energy into lately. So we've got everything from step-by-step tutorials to just therapeutic crafting videos, silent bow making videos, historical reproductions. I'm working on building a library.
I go through phases where I get almost addicted to those silent bow making videos.
Yeah.
Like they're so therapeutic just to sit or the ones where there's no talking, but you can hear the wood being chipped away at with a hand axe or something. I'm just like, oh, I love that.
ASMR style.
Yeah, I'm amazed at how many people watch bow making on YouTube. It's definitely, there's a lot of people who want to learn how to make bows. Like it's shocking to me, but now it's less shocking. But when I first got into it, I was like, wow, there's hundreds of thousands of people watching bow making.
Yeah, I was really surprised at that as well. But I think the ASMR silent videos of all types are really popular right now. Like sometimes there's definitely a demographic for people that want the step-by-step tutorials and all the information, the detailed breakdowns. And then there's people that just want to watch people make cool stuff in the evenings, chilling on their couch. Like just, I don't know. I like the restoration videos of old things, like vehicle restorations, bow making, wood carving, you name it. Just like totally silent, watching people build something really cool. And a lot of times you can learn just as much from the silent videos as you do from the step-by-step tutorials. So we're trying to find that balance right now. I try to do a good mix of detailed tutorials and silent videos.
Well, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you taking the time today and this opportunity to get to know you a bit before I come and see you in 6 weeks.
I appreciate you having me on, and we'll look forward to see you in a few weeks.
All right. Thanks, Corey.
Later, Todd.
Thanks for listening to Project Quiver on Salish Wolf. Follow our journey on Instagram at Project Quiver as we seek out the world's most extraordinary traditional bowyers, and join our newsletter at projectquiver.com. Our coffee table book, Quiver, The Art of Life Through Bowcraft, arrives in 2026. We are honored to share with you the beauty, history, and magic of traditional archery.